Jalen Johnson just signed a 5-year, $150 million extension with the Atlanta Hawks, and surprisingly, the national fan reaction has been somewhat mixed, with a number of fans claiming that it's an overpay or they're just giving anyone $30 million now. I, however, can say pretty firmly that these fans are in fact casuals. Go to Hawks fans' posts and forums to get a better grasp of what people who have actually watched Johnson play here recently are saying, and you get a better grasp of how good of a deal this actually is. In fact, I think that this is the opposite of an overpay. I think we look at this deal in 2 to 3 years and say that it's actually one of the better value contracts for a high-level player in the NBA. People called Jalen Brunson's original Knicks contract an overpay too when he first signed it, and it ended up being one of the most team-friendly contracts in the NBA. And while Jalen Johnson is a much different player than Brunson, I believe he could be an absolute star in this league in his own right. Today, we're going to break down what Jalen Johnson does well, what he needs to improve on to move to that next level, and what I think he can do to elevate the Hawks to consistent playoff contender in the coming years. With all that, let's not waste any more time and get right into it. So let's first talk about what Johnson does well and what he has built his game off of to get to where he is now. So while I'll be the first to say he has a lot going for him as a player, he wouldn't be the player he is without his athleticism and at the rim finishing. He has the perfect build for an NBA forward. He's 6'9", 220, and extremely athletic. If you were going to pick a perfect archetype for a wing, that is it. He does incredibly well at getting downhill and getting to the rim for a variety of finishes. He's a good ball handler, but for the most part, he doesn't need to use it. No need for any fancy crossovers or dribble moves in his game for the most part, at least so far in his career. He simply puts his head down and uses his strength and athleticism to get to the rim and finish, and it works for him. He is generally in the upper tier of fast break players in the league, in my opinion, as well. He's the perfect running mate to go alongside Trey in that fast break game, and an elite level lob catcher as well. Now, these traits are just the beginning though. While he came into the league as a high level athlete, what really is so eye-catching about his game is the fact that he quite simply has gotten better and better at most of his weak spots coming in. I personally have found his 3-point shooting improvement the most remarkable. As a rookie, he was at 23% from 3 with 0.6 attempts a game, albeit in limited time. Second year, he was up to 29% on 1.5 attempts, and last year he made another significant jump, shooting a very solid 35% on 3.6 attempts. Now looking at this year's preseason, he's made his biggest jump. He's shooting 87% on 2.7 attempts per game. Some may say that's unsustainable, but those people are simply haters and do not have sufficient belief in the development of Jalen Johnson. No, but in all reality, while that preseason sample is small, it gives us some indication that we could once again see some improvement out of Johnson on the shooting front. And if we do, that just makes him even more of a significant threat. He already can't be left open at 35%, but if he gets up into, say, the 37-38% range this year, that's a bona fide dangerous shooter, and that floor stretching ability just opens up the lanes even more for him. His defender cannot leave him open, and then he can hit them with the blow-by and finish at the rim. Finally, with his defense, he's always been a strong defender, but with higher usage last year and this preseason, he's looked like a high-level stopper, and this just lends more to his potential as a two-way star. His numbers game has been really successful here, around a steal and a block per game. Preseason, he was up to 2 steals a game, but it isn't just the numbers game. He passes the eye test as well. You see him frequently switching on to quicker wings and even guards, and often holding his own. Now, we all know that switchability is key in the NBA to be considered a high-level defender, and Jalen has shown he has the potential to be that high-level switchable player on the defensive end. So what does Johnson need to improve on to make that next leap? Honestly, other than continued improvement in the areas he's already been improving in, not a whole lot. He's doing extremely well at that already. That being said, there's 2 things I think we need to see for a true breakout. Number 1, a little bit more aggressiveness and creativity on ball in the half court. Don't get me wrong, I think he's pretty good at this, but the vast majority of his shots are set up by Trey. I want to see him expand his on-ball responsibilities so he's able to do a lot more of the self-creation aspect of the game. He's got the skills to do it, he's very strong, he's a solid ball handler, etc., but it really would speak to his growth if he can get to the point where, with the shot clock running down, the team can be close to, if not just as confident in giving the ball to Jalen as they are in giving the ball to Trey, and letting them make something up to get a bucket. A lot of this may be just the team putting more responsibility on him, not him just getting drastically better at something he's already, in my opinion, pretty good at. I think it has a lot to do with that responsibility being put onto him without DeJounte being in the offense. And I think he will do very well if given that responsibility, but that's something I definitely want to see more of. Additionally, and this really goes more along with that first thing, but his passing. He's a good passer. He's shown a lot in recent years, especially in the fast break, that he has really solid vision as a passer and can set up his teammates effectively. That being said, last year he didn't have much responsibility to do so. With both Trey and DeJounte in the offense, like I mentioned earlier, he was at most the third playmaker at any given time, and because of that, he never really got to showcase his creation for others, and he averaged around 3.5 assists a game. This year, I would theorize that the Hawks will be asking him to take on more half-court responsibility in creating, not just for himself, but for others as well. If he does so, one of the major turning points will be how well he adapts his passing game to create for others. If he looks better than he did last year, he will have shown that the Hawks made the right decision in extending him. So overall, where do I think Jalen Johnson ends up as a player this year? Quite simple. Really, really good. In my opinion, with good health, I think he is more likely than not an all-star level player. Yes, an all-star level player. Let's just look at the contract he just signed. 5 years, $150 million extension for a 23-year-old, archetypal, consistently improving wing that does it all on both ends. If he is the player he was last year, it isn't even a bad deal if he doesn't improve at all, and he is still consistently improving. If he stays the exact same as he was, it's like a slight overpay at most. If he improves at all, it's a good contract. Let's compare it to similar deals of other wings like him. Franz Wagner, a player who, while slightly better last year than Johnson, was a more prominent player in his offense with higher usage. Same age, but hasn't improved at the same rate and in some ways has regressed since his rookie year. Still a good player, but based on consistent improvement and ceiling, I would take Johnson over Wagner for my team. What did Wagner get this offseason? A 5-year, $224 million extension that could go up to $270 million. That's at a minimum $74 million more than Johnson and could be up to $120 million more over the same time period. Like I said, I see Johnson as being a higher potential player than Wagner, and based off that, he got locked up for a much better deal long term. Next up, OG Anunoby, a player who, while admittedly being a better defender than Johnson, in my opinion, is a less dynamic offensive player. And the difference on defense isn't just staggering, he's better, but Johnson's a great defender as well. And at this point, OG is firmly in his prime, while Johnson should again be showing more and more growth. OG just got signed for 5 years, $212 million this offseason. Again, almost $70 million more over 5 years, while being capped at what I would say is probably a solid, well above average starter, but unlikely to be much greater than that, probably not an all-star level guy. Johnson has much more growth potential, and usually you have to pay a premium for that growth potential, but the Hawks, in my eyes, came out major winners in that negotiation. In conclusion, I see Johnson taking that next step this year, moving from a high-level starter that's going under the radar to legitimate number 2 option that is a well-known name to anyone who even moderately follows the NBA. An all-star outcome is easily within the realm of outcomes for Jalen Johnson, and a 20, 10, and 5 season with good defensive numbers seems like a reasonable prediction for him this year. In the future, he is, in my eyes, the most valuable player on the Hawks. Yes, they have Trey, but just purely on potential as a two-way star, the type of player Johnson is fits on more rosters and with more types of teammates than Trey does. Trey has to be the guy on ball. Johnson, I think, can be, but doesn't have to be. Trey doesn't play defense at all. Johnson does. I predict that if the Hawks right now were to pick a player to be locked up for 10 years, the right decision would be Johnson, not Trey. He could feasibly be the best overall player on the roster within the next couple years and be a key piece, if not the key piece, to a contender down the road if all things go right and the right pieces assemble around him, even if Trae Young doesn't stay with that team. With all that, that'll conclude this video. Thanks again for watching. As of filming, the NBA season tips off tonight, and I had to get my breakout prediction for the year out before anything really took off. So if you enjoyed this, please be sure to like and subscribe, as I should have plenty more videos on the way throughout the season. Whether you agreed or disagreed, let me know down in the comments. And with all that, thanks again for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed. Hey, thanks again for watching this video. If you like what you saw, go ahead and click on one of these videos here to see more.